Today we're going to talk about why artists needs to collect symbols and create a library of sorts to speed up the sketching process by being a symbol collector. Before I begin though, I have a request to make. Please subscribe if you have not already done so. I'm right now somewhere around 10,800 something and I'm trying desperately to get to 11,000. So please help. Thank you. A fisherman will go catch a fish. Well, that's the job of a fisherman. And even if you are a hobbyist, you'll still be catching fish. And you might let the fish go after that and return it to the pond or sea or wherever you got it. Someone who photographs birds will go and catch birds of all sorts and put it in a database of the birds that she photographed. And if you're a sketcher, you'll be doing the same. You'll be diligently studying. What are you studying? Well, you're studying the visual language of symbols. Shapes, colors, and values by itself has no meaning, but when you put them together, we recognize different things, objects, and meaning and being interpreted by our brain. They are sort of a shortcut, if you like. Why is this important? Well, just like music, the musician has his musical notation. In the same way, a sketcher has a library of sketching notation, or what we call visual language. Well, let me give you some examples and then we can demonstrate it. The first one, very typical, is a teacup or coffee cup, if you like, and then a group of people or a small crowd, if you like, figures clumped together, a small doggy, a puppy, in a seated position, a tree. That's very, very common. You see it everywhere, of course. Birds in the sky, small specks of them. A small pot of plant, could be in your house or anywhere that you could see them. So let's create a visual library of these 6 objects. Let's start with the glass of tea or coffee, if you like. I'm kind of sketching from memory, but you could see that that's the cup with its holding ear, if you like, and of course putting a bit of coffee in the middle. That would be the first example. The second example is to sketch a bunch of figures, a small crowd, if you like. I start with a torso and I'm just putting down a couple of torsos that are close by, one that is a little bit further apart with some space, and then 2 more, and then altogether there are going to be about 6 of these, and I would put in the legs as well, or the pants or skirts, and so on and so forth. It's kind of sketch in some ways out of memory, but you could see that the variety you can put on, but the idea is that the torso and the feet comes in a way quite naturally. You can kind of guess the ratio of that. An oblong shape for the head, and 6 little sort of dots, if you like, for the head, and one with a hat, and then hands added to it at the end, and just to give it some semblance of a crowd, a small crowd. So you see, that's the visual language, the library that I've kept, and of course they stand on the ground, so to speak. And so you see, that's a library that you can keep for drawing lots of crowd, and it's always somewhat like that, if you like. The third example is the little puppy. You could see the shape of the doggy, the ears, the collar, and I kind of run out of space, but I kind of squeeze it a little bit, and then seated position for the doggy, and the hind legs, and so on and so forth. The eyes at the end, just to indicate that it's actually a puppy. So I hope you get the idea that they are visual library that you can keep, and in your sketch you may want to put in a crowd, a puppy, a tree, and and so on. Of course, tree is the easy one, right? Some organic shapes on top, and then the trunk. Okay, badly drawn, but excuse me for that, but I guess you get the picture of what I'm trying to say, right? So again, the next one could be in fact, sort of little V's to the two wings of birds, and from a distance they look like three birds flying in the sky. Finally, the last example is a pot of plant, and I'm kind of drawing the leaves somewhat at random, and of course there's some shape to it. You can kind of guess that there is some branches and so on, but the idea is that there's this simple plant that you could put right there. So these are what I call symbols, and if you start collecting symbols, it helps with your sketch. They speed it up tremendously. So okay, we're gonna put some colors to the sketch so that you can see how by putting in a bit of shadows, a bit of form, you can create a bit more three-dimensional sense to the sketch. Again, it can be part of your arsenal. You can do it in black and white, you can do it in colors, but you can remember it basically as part of the library of your your toolkits, if you like, for speeding up your sketch. So here, after I put in the darker side or the shaded side, I am trying to minimize or soften part of the edges so that the hard edge disappear with a wash into, or melting it away, if you like. And here I'm gonna drop in a bit of complementary blue, against brown, so that you sort of gray out, if you like. Brown and blue are complementary color. Brown is actually dirty orange, and orange is the opposites of blue. And okay, so that's for the first example. The second example, I'm going to use a muted tone, gray, if you like, put in across the entire crowd, because they are actually in the shade, the lights from the back, so there's a bit of a backlight. And after that, I put in the colors of the shirts, a bit of yellow or orange, some green, some blues, and so on. But that's layered on top of the shade neutral color, and that makes the color muted as well. Whatever bright colors I lay on top of the neutral will become muted, and that gives it a sense of being in the shade, or in the dark, or in the shadow, if you like. Drop in a bit more of the darker, or a bit more pigment, if you like, a bit more blue, a bit of turquoise, and so on. As you can see there, it will look like it is a bit of a shaded figures, and that's what I want. The next bit, I add in a bit more of the skin tone colors, Naples yellow with a bit of quinacridone rose, and that should go into the neck, the arms, the legs that's exposed, and so on and so forth. Again, it's standard, tried and true sort of recipe, if you like, and that's basically the crowd. Alright, the next bit, we move on to the little doggy, puppy, and I use a mixture of purple and neutral tint for the fur, the dark fur, and I leave a little bit of spots where I'm gonna you can see the light brown color where the nose, the paws as well, and that's basically quite straightforward and simple. I leave some white, and for the collar as well, and for the nose, and I use a very bright color, the red and orange combined, and dropped in a little bit as well on the paws. It's not in the photograph, but I do it for artistic license, if you like. Okay, the next one will be the tree. This is simple, of course, where the sunlit part of the tree, it's lemon yellow, light springy yellow, and when you mix it with green, it gives you the springy green, if you like. And then I kind of let my brush dance a little bit here and there as I see where the lights are. Not being very accurate. Again, it's a symbol. It's a shortcut to basically simplify my sketch. So I now mute a little bit of the green by adding a bit of the complementary of green, which is red, just a dash, a little bit, and that mutes the green, and that goes to the shaded part of the tree. And for the trunk, I intend to use green plus a bit of brown, in this case queen roast, mixed together with the green that I've already have on the palette. That becomes part of the trunk. I find that green and brown mix really well because it is the natural color of green, of trees and of barks and branch and so on. While it's still wet, I drop in a bit of shadow colors, darker, a bit of, it's more like a purple if you like, plus a bit of neutral tint, and just drop in wet on wet, and that gives it a bit of a shadowy part of the tree. I drop in a few more drops of the tree. As you can see that the leaves can be a little bit further away from the bough of the branches and you know, the canopy of the tree as well. Now I'm moving on to the birds, and you know, 3 birds ain't enough. Add a few more in the distance. Again, similarly, a V-shape flying birds, if you like. So I hope you get the idea of symbols, or you know, creating a library of symbols as part of your arsenal. When you're sketching, you could simplify your sketch by bringing out from your library or your arsenal. Okay, now we move on to the last and final example. Of course, it's green all over, simple, nothing complicated, and you know, it's just using one color. Normally you can kind of use 2 green shades or green tones if you like. Here I'm just being lazy, I'm just using one across it, and later on you see I'll add some shadow to it. And for the vase, I am also being lazy. I'm just gonna use a diluted neutral version of the same color, and just add, or leave rather, some of the highlight. As you can see on the vase, there's some really bright spots. Okay, we're gonna move to the last bit, which is to add shadows and make our sketch look a little bit more 3-dimensional. Shadow adds depth to our sketch, and even though you're using your library, or you're sketching from memory, some of the small little accessories to your sketch, just remember, you can still put in a bit of shadows, and your shadows should stay consistent with the overall sketch. I mean, if you remember that you always sketch shadow from on the left hand side because the right is coming from the right, or the other way around, whatever it is, you just got to make sure that you put in the shadow according to the actual sketch you're using, even though you're pulling out from the library or from memory, if you like. And so the little doggy puppy gets a bit of shadow as well, shadow treatment if you like, and that makes it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more 3-dimensional. Okay, same thing with the crowd. You could see that I'm putting in where I think the legs at the back could be in shaded form or shadow. Sometimes there is the hand or the under the arms or under the head, and so on. Or here I might even put some darks to indicate hair. Very, very casually, and sort of, just make sure that you can read. Well, symbols are meant to be read. So if you write legibly, let's say an X, it should tell your audience is an X. Here, if you're telling your audience is a crowd, then you want to legibly give the crowd visual language, or visual symbol for your audience, if you like. So that it is, your examples of 6 examples from the library. I hope you can go around and collect symbols for your own use and arsenal. And I hope you get something from today's video. Take care and stay safe wherever you are. Bye.